All right, last week was our first in the series of taking a look at different wood species snare drums. That was our overview with Chris Carr at Bucks County, who was kind enough to make us 6 drums to check out. This week, we are going to take a close look at 3 of the 6. I figured instead of just doing a blindfold test out of the gate, we should probably educate ourselves on what do these drums sound like when we know what they are. So this week, we're going to look at what I think of being the 3 most common wood species drums. We've got maple, we've got birch, and we've got walnut. So we're going to start with maple, which is probably the most common wood species in drums. Again, all of these are 8-ply. They're all 5.5 by 14. They have 8 lugs, single point lugs, triple flange hoops, Evans G1 coated batter, clear 300, 16 wires. And what I did was I tuned all of these identically. I started high, which was a fundamental note of F sharp, I believe. No, G sharp. And then I just took it down a half step and demoed it. So you hear it with the snares off, snares on, a simple groove. And then I repeat the process through all the different tunings. I think I went all the way down to a C sharp. So we're getting like a, what is that, a fifth of a range here. And so you can kind of hear, where does the drum kind of transform into something else? Where does you really hear what the drum sounds like? What tunings give you the most like characteristics of the wood? And then at the end, I just retuned each drum up to what I thought was like where the drum had the most kind of natural vibe. So once I got all the way down to super low, I just started tuning it up until I found the spot where like, that's it. That's a cool vibe. Let's leave it there. Rather than going super high and tuning it down, I started from the bottom to kind of find the lower, essence of what the drum could do. All right, so let's get to the maple drum. I've got the drum right here. Natural finish, beautiful drum. So I wrote on the back of these tags what the hardness is. So maple is actually the hardest wood of these 6. It is 1450 on the Janka hardness scale. What does that mean? I mean, I'm now learning after talking to Chris and experimenting, hardness is important. I guess it ultimately affects the pitch, the natural pitch of the drum. But what's also important is the grain structure and the porosity. Is it an open grain? Is it a closed grain? This looks to be fairly closed. It's pretty smooth. You can see, I don't know if you can see it in this camera, but you can see some of the grain, but it's pretty smooth. It's pretty tight. So what did that translate to? I'm finding that the tighter the grain, the longer the resonance. The more open the grain, which we'll hear in some of the drums next week, the shorter the resonance. Other than that, well, let's just take a listen. So here's the 5.5 by 14 maple drum, high to low. Now here's where I found that day when I was making this demo that this maple drum sounded best. Okay, now that your ear is tuned to the maple drum, let's shift over to the birch drum. Got it here? Give me 1 second. All right, the birch drum is the second hardest of the drums that we checked out for this comparison. 1260 on the Janka hardness scale. Again, what does that mean? I'm not really sure that the hardness is important as I once thought it was, but the theory is the harder, the higher the natural resonance of the shell. The grain is also pretty closed and tight. If you can see, it's not, they're pretty tight stripes in the grain in this one. So again, I think that means more resonance, just more tone in general, longer decay. But yeah, let's check out the birch drum, high to low. And here is where, on that day, I felt that this birch drum sounded best. Okay, so we checked out probably the two most common wood species, maple and birch. The third most common is kind of a toss-up, but I felt like walnut would be the one that we see most often. So here's the walnut drum. Let me grab it. You can see here, probably not, but it feels like there's a little bit more porosity. I can tell that there's, it's just a little bit a rougher feel. I guess that's how you would describe porosity. The grain feels pretty tight, but there is some kind of distance between the grain a bit. Definitely wider than the birch or the maple, and a little bit more porous, possibly. The hardness is 1010 on the Janka scale. Let's check out Walnut, high to low. All right, now here is where I felt that the walnut drum sounded best on that particular day in that room with that vibe. All right, there you have it. I'll let you kind of make your rankings on which you like best so far. Next week we will get into, what do we have? We have oak, we have cherry, and we have ash. Maybe slightly less common timbers for snare drums. So just little notes on my experience, which is pretty funny. The birch was the one I thought like, this is the best of these three. The maple was like, this drum could do anything. I could use this and not need any other drum. The walnut was the one that gave me the most vibe. I felt like I had the most fun playing it. So take it for what it's worth. I guess if I had to pick one, I couldn't, because they each did something different to me as a player. Maple will probably be the one, if someone said, come to the studio, bring one drum, I might bring the maple or the birch. If I knew it was going to be something where we get to be more creative and kind of go, play a little bit more, free, or more, not just playing beats and fills, maybe I'll go with the walnut because it just inspired me to be a little bit more creative. I don't know. Let's wait till next week and check out the oak, the ash, and the cherry. Until then,